Welcome to NFL Daily, where if the season just started at Thanksgiving, we've got a whole lot of Super Bowl favorites who are having a miserable season. Yes, I'm Gregg Rosenthal, recapping the Black Friday game, the 3 Thanksgiving games. I'm doing it from my garage in Santa Monica, and I'm doing it with my friend Ollie Connolly of the Read Optional podcast and Substack, who's all the way over in Manchester. Ollie, I'm glad you are the one joining me here for this show, because I feel like the NFL is not the same as it was a couple days ago, that these 2 days, these 4 games in the NFL have probably transformed like how this season looks, maybe more than any week that we've had so far this season.
I agree with you. Everything feels off its axis. All the superstar quarterbacks are essentially, seemingly, if not out the playoff hunt, right on the bubble of will they make it or not. All of a sudden, you start really buying into the Cowboys going on this run, maybe getting into division contention. And then the Bears, I mean, we talked about them, what was it, last Saturday, and some of the kryptonites and concerns, and all of a sudden, like, kind of ticking some of them off week by week, like they could really be a problem in the postseason.
Yeah, we're going to start with the game in Philadelphia, but we have a lot to get to. The Chiefs-Cowboys game was, to me, as fascinating as there was a game all season. The creeping, discomfort with this Ravens team, we'll hit that at the end. But why don't we start, yes, in Philadelphia and with this NFC North race that the Bears just stubbornly refuse to bow out of. They're in first place going into December.
Ball on the 28. Snap to Caleb. Fakes to Swift. Rolling to his left. Being chased. Going to throw. Deep. He's got Komet. Over the shoulder. End zone. Touchdown Bears. Touchdown Cole Komet. What a play call by Ben Johnson. And a throw perfectly timed. Caleb to Cole. Bears extend the lead. 23-9.
Oh, on a windy, cold night in Philadelphia, it was the running game for the Chicago Bears, but it was also the play calling. Great call there by Jeff Joniak on WMVP. Caleb Williams to Cole Komet. Wasn't a lot of passing in this game, but man, that was well-timed, as was a lot of third down calls from Ben Johnson. The Bears, for them, end up cruising 24-15, and it could have been even worse on the scoreboard. Ollie, this was a mollywhopping 281 yards on the ground from the Chicago Bears. How did they do it?
They just manhandled them. I mean, they bullied them up front. There was all kind of the creativity of Ben Johnson in the run game, and he'll get a bunch of those plaudits, but they just went man on man a lot of the time and just bullied them. And the score is a really kind reflection. I thought the Eagles' response defensively was pretty poor for someone of Fangio's stature, not having the ability to kind of mix it up on the fly. I understood some of what he was trying to get away with, but the payoff comes on some of the play action shots they were able to hit. Not a great game for Caleb Williams, probably back-to-back weeks where he's not been near his best. But they just dominated them with the ground game, and the Eagles had no response.
Yeah, I think the wind, it's hard to know without being there, but the teams that were going into the wind all night struggled to throw the ball. And so I think that had an effect. But you're right, the game could have been a bigger blowout. And we'll get to that part of it, but you look at the running numbers. There were 2 100-yard rushers for the Chicago Bears in this game before the fourth quarter started. That hadn't happened, 2 100-yard rushers for this team since the 85 Bears. Like, in an entire game, DeAndre Swift, who's been incredible since the bye week, at 125 yards. Kyle Monangai, who's been awesome this season, 130 yards. And if you add up the total plays that the Eagles defense has been on the field for the last 2 weeks, it was 90 last week. It was 85 this week. I don't know if that played into how Ben Johnson called this game in the first half, but they looked like a tired defense. And I think the Bears were really confident that, like, we are going to be the tougher team. We're the one built for this sort of atmosphere. And they were absolutely right. 47 plays in the first half. And even though the score was close at halftime, it really felt like the rest of the game was set up by that first half just dominating the time of possession.
Yeah, I thought the Eagles looked gassed by the second quarter. I mean, they finished with 11 missed tackles. There was 2 guys with 4 missed tackles apiece, Blankenship and Nakobe Dean. I thought Nakobe Dean had a really brutal game. Meanwhile, Jihad Campbell plays 0 defensive snaps. So nothing to try and change the defensive personnel. And Ben Johnson puts you in this impossible bind. The Eagles want to play with a light box. They get completely mauled whenever they play with a light box. They tried to ever so slightly change the front structure, but the way Ben Johnson calls the running game means you're pretty limited in how many bodies you can actually stick down there, because if someone misses, there's nothing behind you to try and figure it out. So when you've got all the creativity and misdirection, and they lead the league in play action, you're just panicked all the time that something's coming over our head for an explosive. Either the play fake or one missed tackle, one burst, one kind of bit of trickery in the backfield, and it's a wrap. So it kind of forces you to play a bit more static, be a little lighter in the front. And that Bears line is just crushing people at the moment.
Yeah, Darnell Wright has been the breakout from the line, but you have to give the front office and Ben Johnson's vision credit, especially after that first month of the season when it wasn't really working. The free agent pickups with Dahlman, when Jonah Jackson has been out there, and in general, just developing the guys that they have, and some are backups, like at left tackle. It's just a really greater than the sum of their parts team right now, which is really tough. I mean, you don't normally see volume like this with this efficiency, 47% success rate on the ground. And it's hard not to just think about the differences between where this Bears team is right now, and not the Bears from a year ago, because, I mean, that's night and day. This is a 9-3 Bears team. But the Eagles, where they were a year ago, they are now 8-4. And all the concern that everyone's saying, yeah, but they're winning games. Now they're not winning games against better competition. And the running game stuck out tonight, under 30% success rate in terms of percentage. But Jalen Hurts, I thought, had a rough go of it for much of the game, whether it was just missing throws or making rough decisions. Is just another game where it didn't seem like they could take advantage of enough mismatches on the outside.
No, I thought the game plan was egregiously bad. I thought Jalen Hurts was egregiously bad. You kind of bundle the two together and it just becomes a complete nightmare. I mean, they're getting booed off by the fans on the first 3 and out of the game, and it felt fair. This is the defending champs coming into the game who have their division lead, and you felt like the boos were valid. The boos were valid. It was like, okay, after they saw what happened with the Cowboys last week, it made a bunch of sense. And Hurts in particular, I thought his brain was completely scrambled by a really pretty placid, static defense on the back end. To be that confused is deeply, deeply troubling to me.
Yeah, there was like a lot of blitzing from Dennis Allen and the Bears. But like most of the Bears' defensive games lately, there wasn't a ton of pressure still. Like the pressure rate was very low, even though the blitz rate was high. I'm thinking of, the early slant that they had potentially to Devontae Smith, where that could have gone for a touchdown, and Jalen Hurts threw it behind him. And Smith,
on that same play, Dallas Goedert is wide open down the sea. He has 2 touchdowns on the same play. He misreads it and then misses the throw.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if he thought Devontae Smith was going to stop, but I don't know why he would think that based on like the leverage and where the coverage was. And yeah, he misses throws. Like towards the end of the game, he starts having faith in like the one-on-one matchups to A.J. Brown, and A.J. Brown starts making plays for him. It was actually a great game by A.J. Brown. He finishes with 10 for 132 and 2 touchdowns. The second one was sort of garbage time with 3 minutes left, but he was making it happen. But I just don't know if like the crowd is getting into it, if it's the offensive line. Like it can't feel great going into halftime. And you mentioned the boos are loud after the first drive of the game. The boos were insanely loud going into halftime. They have the shots of the kid, going double bird, and then the father, I think, like proud of his young son, like hugging him after that. That was one of my favorite images of the entire season.
Just a beautiful holiday moment for everyone to enjoy internationally. I just think it's borderline unforgivable to have a game plan where the Bears are on their 5th and 6th linebacker, right? Mm-hmm. They are blitzing like maniacs because they can't get any pressure. They don't get any pressure when they blitz. And to not have it built into your plan that everything we do is built around putting those linebackers in conflict. Those are not starting caliber NFL linebackers. We're going to lead into our old school RPO game. It's going to be an awful lot of Jalen Hurts designed run stuff. And we're going to make it, where is Saquon, where isn't Saquon? Maybe we get Tank Bigsby in there for a bit more juice. If one of those linebackers misses the fill, it's an absolute home run shot. For that not to be the plan, for tempo not to be the plan, they only look competent when there's any degree of tempo. You see it the one time they get Jalen Hurts in the quarterback run game. He rips off a 22-yard gain on the ground. Then they immediately go tempo. They take the deep shot to A.J. Brown, and it feels like they're in the game. Why that isn't baked into being automatically part of the offense, particularly against this defense, just makes no sense.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that sequence up, because at that point in the game, the Bears are up 10-3. We went over how dominant the numbers looked at halftime, but they didn't fully take advantage in the first half of that game. There was a 4th and 1 fail by Kyle Monangai, which was overturned upon review. I think that was the first drive of the game. Caleb Williams missed a very wide open Rome Odunze in the end zone when he didn't get his feet set. That was more points that were not really taken advantage of. And then in the second half, where Jalen Hurts throws an interception, where they have a 3-and-out to start, where Saquon Barkley doesn't even look for the ball on the first play of the second half. And you're thinking, Bears have to put it away, and they can't move the ball at all. They get 1 first down in the first 2 drives. Then that sets up the drive you're talking about, where finally they go tempo. They get 5 plays, 92 yards. There's a penalty thrown in there. It's 10-9. And they end up getting the ball back after a Caleb Williams interception on a screen pass where he doesn't give enough loft on the screen pass. So suddenly the Eagles just scored. It's 10-9. Like, they're only down 1 point. They start driving down the field. They are in position to take the lead. And this is where I think the game changed. And I know this must have been fascinating too, just from an X's and O's perspective. The game turns on a tush-push fail. I think that was the biggest play of the game. Our guy, Nahshon Wright, who's having a great season, he's bounced around in the NFL, having a great season, comes in on the tush-push in the red zone and rips the ball away from Jalen Hurts. And that's at 10-9, and that really does turn the game around. The Bears score on the ensuing drive. What did you see on that play that Nahshon Wright got the ball from Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, this goes back to Kelvin Sheppard. Kelvin Sheppard having a really rough time of it as the defensive coordinator in Detroit right now, but he figured out the tush push, which is to have an offset defensive player. He used Nahshon Wright, Sheppard used a linebacker, and you basically spear the tush push. You have someone just completely ignore the sneak element of the tush push, and he just races in from the side to go and grab Jalen Hurts, and you hope you can hold him up and pull him back, and it removes the push element of the quarterback sneak, essentially. They twist it slightly with Dennis Allen, say, just go and rip the ball. If the ball's there and Jalen Hurts is going to hold it, just go attack the football, and you get one of the biggest turnovers of the season to swing, I think, the fortunes of 2 franchises. And while doing that, maybe put to end the effectiveness of the tush push. That is the way to stop it. It's been proven. Woo! Not Brian Flores trying to sacrifice a human at the altar by lying down someone. That one did not work, but Kelvin Sheppard figured it out. Dennis Allen took it, and that is just out there now. If you use this spear motion that you can use defensively, you can attack Jalen Hurts before the push comes along.
And it was interesting to hear Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit talk about Jalen Hurts sounding like he's not even that big of a fan of the tush push. So he would rather just maybe do a quarterback sneak. So maybe that gets back to the Eagles and he helps just self-sabotage the tush push. The ensuing drive, again, it would have been a fascinating fourth quarter because I do think the Eagles defense still would have been tired in that situation, but it would have been a fascinating fourth quarter to see the Bears behind in that situation, whether it was by 2 points, because of a field goal. And yes, they were down that 1 point because of a Jake Elliott missed extra point. The wind and just the kicking conditions were not great. But then the Bears rip off a really outstanding drive where they basically don't have Caleb Williams throw the ball at all. And it finishes in a very fitting way with a Kyle Monangai touchdown.
2 tight ends right side of the line. Monangai, the lone back, take from center, and the give. Monangai washed out by Jonah Jackson, clears a path to the end zone for Kyle Monangai. Mighty Monangai, another touchdown run. This one of 4 yards and a 16-9 Bears lead over the Eagles.
Oh, I love that. And that was a sweet drive. It was a 12-play march, 92 yards, and they follow it up their next drive with a touchdown drive, too. And you mentioned on Blue Sky, I believe it was, a little back and forth with Jordan Rodriguez, which I love to see. And she made the hilarious and true comment that broadcasters love nothing more than the phrase illusion of complexity. And you pointed out, yeah, but in the Bears case, it really is pretty complex. So late in the game, what did you see for what they were doing on those last couple touchdown drives where it just felt like the Eagles defense gave way?
Yeah, I would love one of these coaches. Remember when Charlie Weiss went to Notre Dame and he was like, we have a schematic advantage? Then he like completely fell on his face in college football. I would love one of these coaches to come out and say, no, we are actually very complex and better at this than everyone else, which is essentially what Ben Johnson does week to week. It's just the volume of packages, the volume of concepts within the packages. And I get what they're saying about they dress things up to look the same way. They also just put guys in such difficult assignments. It's hard to overstate how difficult it must be to play tight end in that system. They have way more on their plate than essentially any other position in the NFL. It sets up all the run game, all the play action stuff. And on that drive, you're talking about that, they just lead all the way into, let's go and find our 14 best run plays. And we'll just pick between them based on the leverage of the defense, essentially where someone's shaded, we're just going to tag the weak point of the defense. It's just classic Ben Johnson. You get some of the payoff stuff. This probably wasn't Caleb's best game on the payoff plays. They were there to be made. He just couldn't connect on some of that stuff. I'm sure the win played into that, but that was Ben Johnson deep in the bag on a must-have-it drive for the season.
Yeah, and I think you do see some of the weaknesses, not just of Vic Fangio's scheme, which you mentioned had a light box for so much of the game, but also just these guys. Jalen Carter barely left the field last week. Their front in terms of Jalen Phillips, who might have gotten a little banged up at the end of the game, and their defensive line in general did not come off the field much in that 90-snap game against the Chiefs, and it was the same tonight. And by the end of this game, they just looked gassed, and they protected Caleb Williams well. He didn't hit everything, but he hits that touchdown. There was another 3rd and 4 in the fourth quarter that was important, that was impeccably blocked, and he ends up hitting Colston Loveland on the sideline. And then I thought the play calling was great at the end of the game when they're trying to kill clock to use Caleb's legs on a play where he runs to the sideline. And man, he, in a straight line, he's one of the fastest quarterbacks in the NFL.
I genuinely believe running to the sideline, he's the quickest guy in the league. He loves doing the show off Mahomes slowdown. And it's like, buddy, you're not Mahomes. They're not going to give you the free flag. Please just get out of there and stay safe. That Loveland play is important, though, for the Eagles, too. They've changed defensively what they do on the back end because they're so scared of Adoree Jackson, where they play a sides defense at cornerback now, which you just never see in the NFL. So one guy is set to one side, one guy is set to the other. And instead of it being left or right, which is often how the league will do it, they're going field boundary. So short side the field is Quinyon Mitchell, far side the field is Adoree Jackson. And that's been out there. Now, that really like discombobulated the Lions a couple of weeks ago because you don't see it in the league very much. Now that's out there, it's very easy for the offense to dictate. We know based on how we set our formation exactly where Quinyon Mitchell is going to be on the field. If you go and look at that play, they get the matchup they want, which is Colston Loveland in the slot on Reed Blankenship, and everyone is hunting at all times for Reed Blankenship. That's what everyone wants to do against the Eagles. Everyone else is like an all-pro player other than Adoree if you can find Blankenship one-on-one. So in a must-have-it down, must-have-it situation, the Eagles are really tipping themselves on what they're going to be defensively, and so you can always try and cover up and erase flaws when you feel you've got a sinkhole at corner, but now it's opened up a different kind of ones for them.
Yeah, and it's set up, I think, by being in such favorable situations. I don't know what it ended up on, but I saw late in the first half, like their average third down distance, and they were 9 for 15 on third downs tonight, was under 3.5 yards. So they were just always in a good spot to either run it or give Caleb a favorable look. It continued throughout. What a fascinating season this is in the NFC North. So the Bears stay on top of the division. Everyone was saying, okay, the schedule's going to get hard. Well, it got a little harder last week with the Steelers. Took care of that. Got much harder this week in Philadelphia. Took care of that. You got the Packers 2 of the next 3 weeks. That is really going to be fascinating. And yeah, the Eagles, they have to worry about the division too. We'll get to the Cowboys in a minute, but let's talk Packers, Lions. Let's go to Detroit.
Love steps up, points across in the formation. Now drops back into the shotgun. Here's the snap and fourth down. Rushes on. Love looking off his back foot. Throws the left side.
Yes!
It works.
Yes! A leaping catch at the 30-yard line number. First down, Green Bay. There is your dagger. A Turkey Day dagger right through the Lions.
Great call there. Love Wayne Larrabee on WRNW. I think that's John Kuhn in the background yelling, yeah! Man, what a fitting end to that game because it was a Jordan Love masterpiece. Felt like that was on the short list of like great quarterback performances of the season. It's right there with the Giants game from Jordan Love a couple weeks ago. Obviously a bigger situation, an even tougher opponent, but he had about 4 or 5 wow throws in this game on top of other great decisions throughout. And yes, they answered every Lions scoring drive. I thought Jared Goff was up for the challenge, but ultimately the Packers win 31-24. Great offense beats good defense. And what did you see out of Jordan Love in this game?
Yeah, I think you're probably being a bit harsh on him with 4 or 5. I thought there were probably 8 or 9 wow throws in that thing. I mean, it was just like big boy superstar put the cape on drive after drive in a way that's, he gets almost billed as like this careless bomber, I think, at times, when he is just so unbelievably precise at all times. He was throwing guys open all the time on the sidelines. The Lions came in and said, we are not letting Jordan Love rip us apart over the middle of the field. That is our entire game plan. We make it muddy and difficult in the middle of the field. We'll dare him to beat us to the perimeter. And he said, I'm good, boys. I'm good with that. I'll just rip it all over the place. He bombs the ball down the field when he needs to. He's ripping it outside the numbers to Christian Watson over and over again. He puts it off the sideline where only his guy can get it with pressure in his face. Those are top 3, top 4 player in the league type throws on big time drives.
Yeah, the stats are really something. And we'll talk about the defense in this game. When he is not pressured, he is the best quarterback in the league. The numbers would tell you. And certainly the eyes would tell you that on Thanksgiving. So you think about that throw, big time play. You had the Dontavian Wicks touchdown. That was a close call, whether he got his feet in or not. Ultimately, I think it was the right move. You had the 4th and 6th call where he throws the ball deep. And then you had the Christian Watson touchdown. Let's listen to one of Jordan Love's best throws of the day.
Under center is Love. Single back offense. Jacobs thrown back. On 2nd and 10, back to throw Love. Has time initially. Rainbows deep down the right side. And he's got Watson. Touchdown. Green Bay Packers. Christian Watson blows the top off the Lions defense. Beat Amik Robertson. 51-yard touchdown pass.
That gave them a 10-point lead early third quarter. And to me, Ollie, it's the variety of the type of throws. And when he gets criticized, it's because sometimes he does too much big game hunting, I guess. But like big game hunting is why they won this game.
Yeah, I mean, probably the only flaw is when something goes wrong, he wants to chase it back in one play. And that's a real problem with kind of the offense they have this year. But they have kind of reformatted now and accepted Tucker Kraft is not coming back. We're going to have to build this thing around Christian Watson. We probably will have to be a let's hunt 7 explosive plays down the field. If we hit 3 of them, we feel pretty good about our chances. And I thought this was probably the best evidence of that this season. I did think, again, the Lions' plan, we could see it on the touchdown throw there. It's like everyone's congested in the middle of the field. They're kind of allowing him to take a deep shot outside the numbers. I'm not sure my plan would be, let's allow Jordan to put the game in his hands, trying to hit a deep shot to Christian Watson. It feels like Love would take that every time.
Yeah, and I did think the pressure was maybe the biggest difference between these two teams. So this is the part where we talk a little Micah Parsons. The Lions did not get a high pressure rate in this game whatsoever. They tried to send pressure. They didn't really get there. The Packers did not have to send extra guys on the blitz nearly as often. And Micah Parsons finishes with 10 total pressures, 5 quick pressures. And maybe it's unfair to just compare him to Aiden Hutchinson, but compared to Aiden Hutchinson, 0 quick pressures, 5 pressures on the game. And ultimately, they made life tougher on Jared Goff, who I thought played a good game. Thought it was one of his better games of the season overall. And it's not like Jordan Love was incredible when they did get on him. He was 3 for 12 in this game against pressure. Most of his damage was done when the offensive line did his job. What did you see out of Hafley's defense and how they got after Jared Goff?
Yeah, Micah, it should be noted, was double teamed on 23% of his pass rush snaps. So he's putting those kind of numbers up, plus the 3 run stuffs that are like all-time run stuffs, where it's like helmet could pop off type stuff, superstar type plays. Hafley, I think what was really impressive was leveraging the threat of Micah Parsons. I thought there was a degree of, can we call it arrogance in Dan Campbell's approach to the game, of there was an awful lot of leaving Micah singled up, but in fairness to Dan Campbell, early in the game, Hafley was showing a lot like, I will drop Micah out. We're going to use Micah in really creative ways, all these different creative pressures that Hafley is known for. And so it starts putting doubts in the Lions' mind of whether he's truly coming or not, and whether it's worth investing a double team. And so you can see that pay off over the course of the game. When we get to the kind of the drive where he's just in the backfield every play, then you get the kind of, I'd say, shaky call to extend the drive for the Lions, where he just took over the game for 3 plays and was like, I'm going to end this on Thanksgiving. That was all set up from the first 2 quarters, where Hafley proved that I will just leverage the threat of having the best player on the field by dropping him out and sending an overload pressure the other way, and you get free runners at Jared Goff all through the first couple of quarters.
Yeah, like the first drive of the game, like the first third down snap, Goff had 2 defenders in his face in half a second. There was nothing to be done there. One of them was Isaiah McDuffie, who, by the way, has played great the last 2 weeks. Like, I don't know if you have an Isaiah McDuffie take, but Quay Walker's been injured. I don't even know if we mentioned that in this podcast, but McDuffie's kind of been awesome these 2 weeks. Maybe it's the system, but he's been outstanding.
He's been good. A Hall of Fame high five player arrives just in time to give everyone else a high five in the backfield. He's not quite athletic enough to be like a serious difference maker, but he's in the right spot to the right time, and that's kind of the best you can hope for, I think.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking like he's a crazy difference maker, but it does show, I think, how Micah is setting up everyone else. And you mentioned how he helps to close the game down. This is why you make the Micah Parsons trade. There's like a sack that he makes late in the game to set up a 3rd and 15, essentially kills that drive and then kills the next drive too. Because for a while, Goff is fighting back and making some highly difficult plays, despite the fact that they lost Amon-Ra St. Brown in the first drive of the game. He never returned. He has an ankle sprain. Rap sheet says he will not be placed on IR. It's a quote-unquote low ankle sprain, so we'll see. But they're without Laporta. They're without Amon-Ra St. Brown. We got the news before the game that fired me up that Frank Ragnow is going to return at some point. Like, do you think long-term, because they are out of the playoff picture right now, that they have enough, let's say they don't have Amon-Ra for a few games, to get it done offensively without him?
I really don't. I mean, it was a shocking amount of Tom Kennedy, who has been with the team since like 2019, since he finished playing lacrosse. And he's just always on the practice squad. He gets on the active roster 24 hours before the game. Then he's getting 7 targets in a game against Micah Parsons' defense at home. That was pretty shocking. The Ragnow news, I'm so fired up to have Frank Ragnow back. I would pause slightly that it feels unfair to put expectations on him, that he's going to walk off the sofa like Joe Flacco did a couple of years ago as a center in the league. When we've seen how linemen look when they retire, they shed weight really quickly. To expect to just walk back in as a Hall of Fame caliber player who will kind of like erase and fix all the problems, I think is a little unfair on Ragnow.
Yeah, and they were without Graham Glasgow in this game, who had been taking over at center. So, they've had issues, and maybe that helps to explain the drive at the end of the game, but it really reminded me of the drive late against the Eagles, where the Lions took a while, and it almost felt like they waved the white flag in Philadelphia that night, just taking forever in a game that they were only down by a touchdown. And the same thing kind of happened in this game, where they take a 6-minute drive late and kind of just end the game on themselves, and it ends in a field goal too, because Goff ends up taking a sack. That's one of the drives where Micah Parsons makes such an impact. And it just feels like, man, these are not the Lions that I love. These are not the Lions that I had in the Super Bowl. I'm not feeling great about that right now.
No, I think that's part of when you change the play caller mid-season. You might have some operational issues during the... Dan Campbell's trying to manage the entire game, and he's also calling the plays, and it just feels like there's a bit of friction there. I don't think he's done a great job. I think we all just love Dan Campbell and respect Dan Campbell. That's like you just assume he's going to be good at this stuff. I think he's been pretty poor over this month that he's been calling plays. I mean, they had a 24% success rate on 25 early down runs, and I understand the logic that we lose Amon-Ra, we've not got Laporta, the line is not playing very well. Just get the ball in the hands of Jahmyr Gibbs. But there are more creative ways to do it than just slam your head against a brick wall over and over again, where Evan Williams is having the absolute game of his life flying down from safety to pin everything he can in sight. And it just felt like an ideological game where he's like, no, this is who we are. The 4th down calls, the run game stuff was like, no, this is how we play Detroit Lions football. And it's like, you are losing the game quite handily, and your quarterback is playing absolutely lights out in a really tough situation where his interior line is terrible. Ratledge is the only one who's supposedly healthy, and he's hurt and wincing throughout the game. He's throwing to a lacrosse player. He's playing absolute money, and you don't adjust the game plan at all.
I mean, that's fair. That, by the way, that seam ball to Kennedy was a beautiful throw and catch. I mean, some of the passes to Jameson Williams was like in just the smallest window and catches him perfectly in stride. I'm not saying Goff's game was perfect. And in fact, the time on 4th down where the Packers did a good job flushing Goff out and got him off his spot, and he throws on the run, but it's just a little bit behind Williams. Williams could have made that catch, but it maybe just showed the difference between Goff and some of the more mobile quarterbacks in the league. Like, ultimately, he did a good job. And yeah, Dan Campbell's not going to change, I think, who he is. He talked after the game about the 4th down decisions.
I didn't like one of those 4th down calls. It felt like, I don't know how good of an opportunity we really gave our guys on that first one, But we had an opportunity, and even at the end of the day, we had an opportunity, and we couldn't, we just couldn't get it done there later in the game. So I wouldn't say necessarily that's going to have an effect on me. You always want to convert them, and we've had a lot of conversions here. It just didn't work out today.
Oh man, I read those quotes. I hadn't seen it. How is a dejected Dan Campbell hitting you on this Friday?
Hits me in the gut. I will say, I don't want to upset my friends in the Data Dork community. I am all for, let's go for it. Whatever the numbers say, I get it. I'm with it. There is a degree of understanding your own personnel, which is why I like that he took some accountability there. Like, the play he got them into based on what he's dealing with at the moment is probably not the smartest play to be in. And just when your interior is a disaster, your quarterback can't move off his spot, you do have to change ever so slightly on how you can actually get through and win these games. And when you've got a run game, it's like maybe it's a time to go and take some points.
Yeah, the Jameson Williams drop was the second 4th down that they failed. And I believe the first one was a Jameer Gibbs run up the middle, which thought maybe Goff switched to.
Yeah, Dan Campbell was giving his quarterback. He bailed him out there because that was a full check. And it asked for Tim Kennedy, again, the 5'8" lacrosse player, to move inside from a really wide position to come and try and pin, like he's prime Cooper Kupp, a backside safety. So that was just never, ever going to work. And I think that's Dan Campbell throwing himself in the grenade for Goff there.
I love that you shouted out Evan Williams and what he did in the run defense in this game. Obviously, Parsons had some great run stuffs. Your guy, Edge Cooper, also showed up on a few big plays. They stuffed the run 10 times, so that's at or behind the line of scrimmage. That's a huge number. I'm actually surprised the Lions' success rate was as high as it was, which is 31%, which is still quite low, but they had so many negative runs. What do you think about this defense and kind of how they are rounding into form for the stretch run and their toughness?
I still think that they're a bit loose on the back end, I would say. And I do worry about them against a really great quarterback who can move slightly. Obviously, anyone would be concerned about that. But I think you see if it's not immediate pressure, they can be a bit of a sieve. All their players play best top down. Evan Williams is a maniac attacking the line of scrimmage, and I adore him for that. If he's just playing on the half field, having to kind of figure out what's going on, he gets lost all the time. I mean, he was lost like 7 times in this game to offset the 7 unbelievable plays in the run game. It's just, there's no time when that pass rush is getting home. So if the other guys can rise to the level as they did in key spots on Thursday, then obviously it offsets everything. Enigbari, everyone playing to a higher level. I think Leuven, Devontae Wyatt is a huge loss to them inside. They're falling down the pecking order now of those interior guys. They really need some kind of upfield rush when Parsons is getting double teamed at this kind of clip. Otherwise, it's our Super Bowl chances are in the hands of Enigbari, and I don't love those odds.
Yeah. So after the game, Devontae Wyatt, who was carted off, we didn't get a complete report from the insiders yet, but Matt LaFleur said, quote, "It doesn't look good." In general, when they say that, it's usually some sort of break, which would be really unfortunate for them, one of their most important players up front. I want to leave on a positive note, though. I mean, Christian Watson, his dad knew. His dad, for people that don't know, we're on Twitter. We're saying, first of all, they're not using him, right? He can do more than what he's doing. He's a complete receiver. He's a tougher guy. And then number 2, he's going to be back from this injury sooner than you think. The rehab is going better than anyone who's ever torn his ACL before, and he's going to be more explosive before. And damned if he hasn't been right. Christian Watson looks like a centerpiece of a passing attack, which I did not expect. He really has changed this offense since he came back.
Yeah, and so needed with Kraft going out. I mean, to just have the gravitational pull of someone. Tucker Kraft was such like a gravity player where everyone would just kind of pinch around him and it would open up targets for everyone else. They needed someone who was another 3-level threat. And Watson developing as like a middle of the field kind of sneaky demon, I think is really transformed what they can be on offense.
Yeah, Matthew Golden was out for this game. I do think if you told me we're in the playoffs and suddenly that's when Matthew Golden starts breaking out with like a couple big time plays, like that would not shock me. I don't think he was lost earlier this year. Maybe you tell me differently, but like they still could have another piece to play in this offense. It's exciting. For the people like you are holding the I have the Packers winning the Super Bowl ticket. I feel like even though the Bears won on Friday, you got to feel better maybe than you have all season long with the Packers at 8-3-1 after this win.
I feel good seeing Jordan Love, who is the quarterback I enjoy watching the most, round into this kind of form at this stage of the season is very, very exciting.
So I mentioned they have 2 games against the Bears in a 3-week span. It's actually 18 days because the last of those games is on a Thursday night, which is a banger of a game, but I hate that scheduling. Like 2 games in 18 days between these 2 teams is weird, and they both have some very challenging games down the stretch. So there's a lot of game to play, and yet I feel like the Packers, if there was any doubt, like 8-3-1, they're in outstanding shape to not only possibly win the division, but certainly get a wild card at the very least. And now Chicago at 9-3, despite that tough schedule, looking very good, a couple games up on the Detroit Lions. All right, that's the NFC North. Let's take a break. And you know it's been a good couple of days when we save what might have been one of the most fascinating games of the entire season for after the break. Yes, Chiefs and Cowboys coming up.
All right, here we go. Prescott looking that way. Now he runs up out of the pocket. He sprints to the right. He dumps the ball to Williams, who steps in from the 1. Touchdown, Cowboys. They drew it up in the dirt. They drew it up in the dirt. Prescott said, I'll hear you. Here, you do something. And Williams did something.
That was Brad Sham on KRLD. And that was the end of a beautiful drive by Dak Prescott to take the lead, a lead they would not relinquish. Cowboys win 31-28, and I wanted to start there, Ollie, because I did feel like that drive, that moment where they are trailing in the fourth quarter, was a fascinating moment in this game. And after that, we get a whole lot of George Pickens. We get a decent amount of CeeDee Lamb, and we get Dak Prescott doing the stuff before the snap, after the snap, and occasionally like that with his legs improvising. To me, it was like the full Dak experience, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, I was just rolling around the floor with glee. I said Jordan Love is my favorite quarterback to watch. Dak is like my dearly beloved. Seeing him have that kind of performance against Spags on what may be the most watched game in history when the numbers come in, very, very, very thrilling.
Yeah, the closing of this game to me was so telling. So Chiefs take the lead, and we'll back it up because Mahomes played very well in this game. There was so much to go to in this game. This is going to be a challenge for us, frankly, Ollie. You said how many words did you write of notes this week?
Oh, 3,000.
3,000. Okay. And how many was on this game? Because I do feel like I have just more on this game. There was like a lot going on in this game.
Probably 2,500.
Right.
Game, yeah.
So trying to boil it down is tough. But I do think how they closed the game offensively was fascinating and telling. You essentially have the George Pickens drive where, you know, he has the play where he gets the big hurdle on the third down, but he also draws pass interference. He has a couple other catches, and it ends, I believe that's the drive. You also have an incredible 2-point conversion play. Thought of going with that for the highlight right after that, where Dak puts it in a tiny window to Pickens. Following drive, after they get the ball back, that's where you hit the 51-yarder to CeeDee Lamb. You know, Spagnuolo sends pressure with McDuffie, and you get a one-on-one Chamari Connor against CeeDee Lamb, beauty dime down the field. You get a field goal there to go up 2 scores. And then you finish the game by getting the ball back with 3:22 left. And there were so many parts, and I'm combining them all together, just wanting to take the big picture here. Ollie, where because the Chiefs took the lead and then the Chiefs, got it to one score and there's 3:22 left, there were so many points where I thought, okay, this is where the Chiefs do get that stop. This is where the Chiefs get the ball back and then win. But it just kept not happening, and they closed it out by throwing the ball 2 times in a row on second down, which I think was so important. On one, they get a pass interference. That was to Pickens. On another, they complete the ball to Lamb. He goes out of bounds, but whatever. They end up finishing out the game and just never give the ball back. Kind of walk me through what you think of just Brian Schottenheimer and how Dak approached this fourth quarter and finishing out what was a great game plan.
Yeah, I think Schottenheimer is so dialed in. I think that's probably just the best all-around offense in the league. Just design-wise, I think it's almost streaks ahead of everyone else at the moment. And then where I feel like Schottenheimer is just like taking himself to a whole different level. We talked about some of like the organizational arrogance of Dan Campbell, being able to step back and understand that we need probably 3 first downs to win the games and maybe end the Chiefs season. It's players, not plays in those moments. And we can find ways to get CeeDee Lamb in the slot one-on-one. That's just what we want. Design is irrelevant. We're just going to go man to man, get our best player the ball. We'll have the Pickens drive. You mentioned, let's just find a way to get George Pickens isolated. We think he's the best athlete on the field. He was playing like the best athlete on the field. He's the smoothest athlete maybe in the league right now. And so that's just how we're going to go down swinging. We've done all the fun stuff, all the creativity, all the game plan stuff. And when we've got to have it drive, when it's come from behind territory, we're just going to go to our 2 best players. That's how we're going to go down.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb finishes with 7 for 112 and a touchdown. Pickens has 6 catches on 13 targets. When I looked at it in the end, I was like, oh, McDuffie got his share of wins. It was especially him in coverage. But ultimately, there were a ton of penalties. And when you really go through all the numbers, and the Cowboys' numbers are great. I mean, they finished with 457 yards. They're over 50% on third down. Like, their numbers are great, but the Chiefs' numbers are pretty great too. And the biggest difference you can really see is the 110 yards of penalties that the Chiefs have. 10 penalties for 119 yards. And it did put them in difficult situations on offense, and it did help sustain some of these Cowboy drives. Or it was just a desperation ploy because their players aren't as good as the Cowboys. And I know Chiefs fans are mad at Andy Reid right now, and there could be some reason to be fair, but I also watched this game just thinking like the Cowboys offense is more talented than the Chiefs defense.
Oh yeah, they had Spagnuolo in a blender at times. I felt like where he just didn't know what to do, where he's got no pass rush, and yet another primetime game where George Karlaftis is just MIA. Every single primetime game, every big game, every time you need him to do something to help your season out, you hand him that ridiculous contract. He puts up a donut every single time. Completely irrelevant in a big game. And to be fair to the Chiefs, they kind of sold out to try and force the Cowboys into 3rd and medium, 3rd and long. And then Dak was just money on 3rd and 4th downs. They had a 62% success rate on 3rd and 4th downs. That's just a ridiculous number to have at the best of times. It's even crazy to have when that is like the money Spags down. That's when he does all the cool Spagsy stuff. And the Cowboys just a step ahead the entire evening.
So I think the game we just talked about, Packers-Lions, and then this one had some similarities. I meant to mention it with the Packers Lions is like the Lions blitz rate was more than double the Packers, and the pressure rate was around the same. It was actually better for the Packers. It was kind of a similar dynamic here. It wasn't quite as severe, but ultimately the Chiefs blitzed almost half the time, and yet they only had a pressure rate of 30%, which was lower than the Cowboys. That's an amazing stat because it's also a Cowboys pass rush stat, which is awesome. Like they had a totally respectable, good pass rush overall without having to blitz like crazy. But Spagnuolo hits that blitz early in the game. It's the first 3rd down, and they heat up Dak Prescott, and he throws an interception, and you're thinking, oh man, this might be a long day. And it was almost like that success early got Spags too cocky or something because he just kept sending stuff the rest of the game. And after that, like Dak seemed to really have an answer for what they were doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Spags has got Dak a bunch when they've played in their career. Like he has had him, and he really does come after him in a way that no one ever goes after Dak Prescott that way. He is a blitz killer. He's so intelligent, so smart. He can identify everything so quickly, and he's old school Brady-esque replace the blitz quarterback. Wherever the blitz comes from, you just throw the ball behind the guy's head, you move on with the game. And so Spags tried to get him with more zone pressure stuff, what you call a hot pressure, which is where the blitz guy goes from. We drop someone from the defensive line into where the blitz guy came from. So if he replaces the blitzer, Chris Jones or someone is stood there. That's how they tried to get him with that first third down. They get the free runner through, Chris Jones drops into that spot. Dak looks to the other side of the field, thinks it's a blitz when it's Spags. Usually it's a man blitz. It's a zone blitz. Instead, throws it into a cover 2 hole and gets picked off. They start trying to toggle back and forth between all-out man pressure, which is kind of vintage Spags, and more of these zone pressures. And I got to say, to me, it's all credit to the offensive line more than Dak. It's not a Dak stat. If you look at 4 of them, which are really cool designs from Spagnuolo, difficult to pick up stuff, Dak is not even looking at the side of the field where the pressure's coming from, and the Cowboys guys just clean all that stuff up. How well they've become tied together when they've got a new left tackle. Booker is playing completely out of his mind the last few weeks as a rookie. It was a really, really impressive Cowboys O-line performance when Spags tried to get really creative.
I'm glad you pointed that out, because that was something we talked about throughout the offseason. This young offensive line, how do they come together for the Cowboys? Because there was a ceiling there, a lot of high draft picks, and I know Tyler Guyton, their left tackle, is out right now. Nate Thomas filled in for him, and he did give up the most pressure of anyone on the offensive line, but it still was under control. Like, he did not stand out. The rest of the group, Booker, Terrence Steele on the right side, and then you have Cooper Beebe and Tyler Smith. Like, they've played a lot of games together in a row, and they're playing well. And to your Karlaftis vicious takedown earlier, 31 pass rushes in this game, 1 pressure, and it wasn't quick. So fair. It's fair. I was worried because you put NFL Daily, Ollie, in your profile now on social media, which I love seeing. I feel proud. But I was worried, now that that's there, are we going to get like a softer version of Ollie? And George Karlaftis knows that. Let's listen to CeeDee Lamb. After the game, I loved just hearing the Cowboys and seeing the Cowboys loving this moment.
What's the message to the whole league as far as your resilience and able to bounce back and what you can actually do in this game?
Keep talking. I see y'all. That's my message. I see it.
I just love like the cockiness too, and how they were, they get the turkey leg afterwards, and they're sharing the turkey leg, like 2 guys biting the same one, which was a little.
It's good for team chemistry. I don't think that Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown are sharing turkey legs.
Yeah, not great. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Chiefs offense, because it was a great Mahomes game. Would you go that far and say great? Maybe like a very good Patrick Mahomes game, like Jared Goff in the losing effort. I do think he was very much up for the challenge, and we don't have to do the QB wins loss thing, because I can think of 4 or 5 outstanding plays by Mahomes, and maybe he didn't hit every improv play, but he hit a lot of them, and I think did enough to win this game.
Yeah, and he's doing it with all those miscues you mentioned on offense too. All the penalties backing them up. They're down 3 linemen, right? Midway through the game, there's no Smith. Simmons goes out with an injury that looks like that's going to send him to IR. The right tackle, Juwan Taylor, goes out too. So doing it under a ton of fire. I got to say, I'm worried about Andy Reid, and I don't want to blaspheme against the football gods, but it is just so strange to watch an Andy Reid team become one of the most predictable offenses in the NFL, have some of the most almost laughable tendencies at this point, where the good coaches just know everything they're trying to do, and so much of the game every week just feels like Mahomes running for his life, and if it's not magic, nothing is going to happen. We get the play where he almost falls over twice and he throws back down the field, and that just feels like a microcosm for the season where it just feels such hard work for them all the time.
Yeah, think about how this game could have been a blowout the other way. Not a blowout, but a comfortable win for the Cowboys. They hit the 4th down to take the lead to Rashee Rice, which is a miracle play by Mahomes, and a great catch by Rashee Rice, who did have a pretty big drop on 3rd down at another point in the game that killed the drive, but for the most part has come to play the last couple weeks and made big plays. You hit the first touchdown on a 4th down to Travis Kelce. That was not an easy play at all. That's 14 points right there. You mentioned the play where he is absolutely stumbling before hitting Xavier Worthy, or they're facing a 4th and long, and the game is essentially over. And the touchdown to Marquise Brown, I mean, that's just like a talented play. Patrick Mahomes is awesome, but these were not easy plays by Mahomes, and it is striking that there's hasn't been a lot of easy buttons. There is something to me that I don't know if this team is tired or Andy Reid's tired. I mean, the man is 67 years old. They've played a lot of football games, and the weight of being the Kansas City Chiefs, it's not like it went away from losing that Super Bowl. I think it's still there, and there does seem to be some sort of fatigue factor, maybe mentally as well as physically with this team.
There's certainly a lack of ideas. There is still a stunning amount of Kareem Hunt. So much is still built around Travis Kelce, who I think is moving way better than he did do last year, but I just don't know if that's what you want to, center the offense around at this point. I just go back to a couple of weeks ago, they played Denver. There's 2 plays where they motion, and Vance Joseph is basically running onto the field to point out to his corner, a corner out is coming. It comes twice when he runs out on the field to do that. They face the Colts. When they get into a certain formation with a certain motion, it's the exact same target point of the run game, a same side run action, 6 for 6 times in that game. They get to the same look against the Cowboys on their 3rd drive. They have the 2 really good drives, and they have nothing for 4 successive drives. And the Cowboys linebackers, hardly, a Hall of Fame group, are almost laughing getting to the line of scrimmage. You'd be like, are you kidding me? Are they going to do this again? And there's no payoff play built into these actions. We're going to run the ball with the same action at the same point over and over again, and nothing pays off. That's just not Andy Reid. He's usually falling over with all these different ideas. He used to have Mike Kafka on staff digging through Chinese and Japanese and Lithuanian film to go and find cool plays that they would hit over the head of the Las Vegas Raiders. And now it just feels so fatigued.
And you mentioned the Josh Simmons injury. It's a dislocated wrist. We don't know when he'll be back, but he's going to be out indefinitely. And that's a huge loss for them. I mean, they do have a well-paid, good backup in left tackle Jalen Moore, but that's a big loss for them. And yeah, you mentioned the 4 successive punts that they had. 3 of those ended in Dallas territory. So in one hand, the Chiefs were in this game because they kept hitting 4th downs. On the other hand, they punted from plus territory from a 4th and 4, I believe it was. And that ended up setting up that George Pickens drive. It's there is still a level of conservatism from Andy Reid that I find frustrating.
Yeah, I believe the surrender index put that in the 98th percentile of cowardness from Andy Reid, and the Cowboys got the yardage back in 4 plays. So it was a very worthwhile. And Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback. You would feel if ever there was a time to be ultra aggressive. So we're now stacking up that they have 2 of their key offensive pieces are old. Then they're more predictable than they've ever been. And then he's being more conservative than he has before. So I think that, and around all that, they actually play really well offensively. All the advanced stats still love them. They're better this season than they were last season. But the margin for error is so thin because of injuries, because the defense has really regressed. Them being league average is a testament to Spags, given what's happening on the back end and the lack of a true pass rush. Their only way to impact the quarterback is pray and hope that a 5-man zone pressure forces a turnover. It's not even going to get home. It's just, will the quarterback panic with a flash of color and throw the ball to us, or Chris Jones goes ham for 4 snaps a game.
Yeah, and if you want to go down to just the basic stats, but I do think they're telling sometimes. 9 quarterback hits for the Cowboys, 3 sacks, couple of them just when Mahomes is just holding it, trying to make a play. And then on the other side, the Chiefs do not sack Dak Prescott. They do get 6 quarterback hits in the game, but couldn't get him down. Let's listen to Patrick Mahomes after the game, now 6-6.
Just missed opportunities. I mean, just like all the losses we've had this year. We can beat anybody, but I mean, we've shown that we can lose to anybody. And so we got to be more consistent.
He was kind of dejected, I would say, on again when they played the Broncos and lost that game. That was a humbling game. This one, when I watched them, I'm not saying it was acceptance, but it was just yeah, this is where we are. We're 6-6. I don't think their season is over. Certainly, if any team could run the table, it could be them, and they could even maybe afford a 7th loss. But we have reached that point now with these teams that were Super Bowl favorites coming in, like the Lions, like the Chiefs, where it's legit. They might not make the playoffs.
It's wild. We credit to Mahomes for that answer, I guess, but he was majorly responsible for losing the Broncos game. So he played really well in this game, but it's kind of he gives one back to the defense for having, I think, cost them the Broncos game. It just makes it now a Texans and Chargers doubleheader, which is certainly winnable, but becomes must win. And with the injuries on the offensive line going against the most ferocious pass rush in the NFL, it becomes once again, Patrick, put the cape on. We're out of ideas. You got to go figure this out on your own.
Yeah, Chiefs fans have had a lot of fun over the years. I do like how it sets up this stretch run between these two teams. So yes, now the Cowboys are only a game and a half back of the Eagles. There's a path certainly for the Cowboys to make it as a wild card. If they only lost one more game and they have the Lions next Thursday night, finally, Shooky and I get like a real banger of a Thursday night game. Such a big game for both teams. Even if they lost that Lions game, if you look at their last four, they're probably favored in all of them. They could possibly even lose the Lions game, win out, get a wild card. But 1.5 back of the Eagles, they have a chance to maybe win the division. The Eagles, though, do have the Commanders twice and the Raiders in there. And so the margin it's going to be tough to try to pass the Eagles. On the other hand, the Chiefs, they're rooting for everyone in the AFC to keep losing, which is why when they were watching Baltimore and Cincinnati, if they were watching or checking their phones later that night, they were loving the result. Let's go to Cincinnati.
Burrow in the shotgun, Pirine to his right. Shotgun snap. Joe under pressure, flings it down the middle of the field. Yossi Bosch leaps at the 3 and takes it into the end zone. A 28-yard touchdown to Andre Yossi Bosch. And the Bengals lead is back to 11 with the PAT coming up.
I love that throw, and I love the satisfaction that Joe Burrow had after the game talking about that throw. Everything that he had done to get back was to be in position to set up his guy Yoshi. The Bengals upset the Ravens 32-14. That was Dan Horde and Dave Lapham on WCKY. It felt like Burrow needed the first half just to warm up a little. I mean, he still was good, but he missed a few throws. They settled for a lot of field goals, and they had a lead at halftime. But in terms of ball location and decision making, the second half of that game, to me, Ollie, was like Joe Burrow had never left.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that throw is so absurd, and I feel for Roquan Smith. You can see in his eyes that is an incredible play from Roquan Smith. He goes from a mugged up spot to kind of matching the route vertically all the way down the field, and he looks over like, are you kidding me that Joe Burrow has returned? Only 4 guys could make that throw on time. Absurd play. Yeah, I thought he took some time to get warmed up, and they just tried to feed to Jamar Chase going into the second half, and obviously that's where the wink-wink connection between those guys come in, and you can get more explosive down the field. I mean, this was a game going into the third quarter, given how many turnovers the Ravens had in their own half. The Bengals really struggled to convert in the red zone. I thought that was where you really saw kind of like a crispness and fluidity show up for Burrow, where it's has to be done instantaneously at the snap, and you're going from practice speed to game speed, and then he really sped things up in the second half.
Yeah, and look, their running game has been better lately. I thought their offensive line had a good game, maybe pointed out the Ravens' lack of a pass rush. And then there were a number of throws to Chase that were just huge. A 3rd and 7 helped set up a touchdown. Just one of those outs, perfect timing that just Joe Burrow makes look easy. He had a bomb to Chase in this game that he put everything into, and it worked out, and that set up points. I believe that was a field goal drive. And it's kind of like you're getting all the good stuff from Joe Flacco, but without the crippling interception. So that's a big upgrade. But I guess the biggest difference is the Cincinnati Bengals are forcing 5 turnovers against the Ravens. How much of it do you think is the Bengals defense, and how much of it was Lamar Jackson and this Ravens offense just having a brutal performance?
I thought a mix of both, which I know is a cop-out, but the Bengals pass rush looked significantly improved, I think, in part because we're just underrating how poor the Ravens offensive line is. Lamar, I just thought, I don't know what was happening during that game. Maybe he had too big Thanksgiving dinner or something. It was just not feeling it. I mean, the fumbles where the ball's just coming out, every single fumble was avoidable, not only from the fact the ball slips out of his hands or he makes a poor decision, but there were wide open throws all over the field that he just turned down, which then meant the play was extended, which then caused the fumbles. He was just so out of rhythm. And throughout this run where they've been winning the games, their offense just looked so disjointed and disheveled. I felt throughout the run there is just no rhythm, and they've kind of got away with it through turnover luck, that they have not turned the ball over during that run. They turned the ball over on Thursday more than they have done at any point during the winning streak.
Yeah, it was both a cursed game and a terrible game. You had the Zay Flowers offensive pass interference kind of a shaky call. That would have been 7 points just taken off the board. You had Isaiah Likely on a catch and run going in for a long score, and DJ Turner knocks it out right at the goal line, and the Bengals get the ball back on a touchdown. That's 14 points. Then again, it's also 3 points with Lamar just dropping the ball for Cincinnati to kick a field goal before the end of the first half. And maybe the biggest play, or certainly one of the biggest plays of the entire game to me, because it set the tone, was him fumbling the ball, kind of running into pressure early in the first quarter on his own goal line and setting up the Bengals. It only ends up being 3 points, but there was just something about it that it set a spooky mood that they never really got out of. I mean, that crowd was dead, Ollie. Not only did they leave with 7 minutes to go, they were silent the whole game. I think they think this Ravens team doesn't have it. And based on the eye test, like I think they're right.
No, the home crowd always knows, and everyone's talking about putting this run together, and it's really just a knock on the Steelers kind of stinking. I mean, that's not accepting that the Steelers kind of stink. They know they've not got the juice, you know? This was just, to me, the most bizarre Lamar game, because he looked healthy finally, despite being on the injury report constantly. He was moving pretty well. When he had to take off with his legs, he looked more spry than he has done throughout the win streak. But just from the pocket, some of the decisions were pretty poor. He had no touch or actually down the field, missed some wide open throws, a bunch of turndowns against the flakiest defense you could hope to find that isn't in Vegas, and just choosing not to let the ball go was really quite a bizarre performance.
And the weird thing is he had a number of great throws. So I know the weather was not good, but I don't think it was like a crazy windy night, but it was cold there. Didn't seem to hurt Burrow too much. And Lamar also had like a number of good throws. If you just isolated the good throws, you were like, okay, he's fine.
The throw to Likely you mentioned, where he gets Jordan Battle, punches the ball out on the goal line, is an unbelievable throw. He has another one to Likely move into his leg. He somehow does that weird Lamar thing where he just goes into slow motion. Everyone else is moving at double speed, and he's able to throw the ball back for a dime into the middle of the field. So it was just a real roller coaster ride with him, and it's been like that for the offense as a whole. But a lot of it, I think, is being attributed to he's just not moved that well, even within the pocket. He just seems really sludgy. And yet it looked like he had the legs all the way back last night, both in terms of like kind of the explosive twitchy movements within the pocket, then being able to break out, and then they actually just vanished on him.
Yeah, he had to pick up a few first downs with his legs, but yeah, there were just throws he had that he missed. There was a play action shot to Andrews, was open, just missed it. He had a 3rd and 9, I believe, to Zay Flowers, killed the drive, just missed it. Like a Rashad Bateman seam ball, which was a tough throw to make, but he missed it by a ton. He like one hop Keaton Mitchell at one point, and he just hasn't been on the same page. And sometimes he needs, Dontez Walker to make a play for him the last couple of weeks, and Tez Walker just refuses to make that play. Let's actually listen to the interception that Lamar Jackson threw late in the game, because for all of these turnovers, the Bengals were kicking field goals early, and even though they played better late, the Ravens were still in this game, and they did put together a couple touchdown drives, including some big Derrick Henry plays. Keaton Mitchell also had a touchdown to close the gap in the third quarter, so it wasn't really over until this Lamar interception.
Huge play here, 3rd and 9 at the Cincinnati 15. The Bengals showing pressure. They've got 7 guys up on the line. Lamar drops back. Lamar throws downfield into the end zone. Tipped and intercepted. Demetrius Knight running it back. He's at the 30, 35, 40. Spin move there and tackled around the 45-yard line. A tip at the line results in a pick for Demetrius Knight, and the Bengals get their 4th takeaway.
And yeah, that was more of bad luck for Lamar, maybe not being as aware or moving in the pocket as you would like. But it was a night where Joseph Asai and Miles Murphy were making some plays in the backfield. It's all Bengals fans have wanted. It's just some signs of life out of their pass rush. And Asai had a monster game, 2 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, 4 hurries. And I thought Murphy was back there too. It didn't quite show up on the stat sheet, but I just thought he was active, giving them something where, I don't know, this division's pretty rough, Ollie. Do you have any faith maybe that this defense could turn it around a little bit?
No, I think they are just disaster spots everywhere. They're so funny because it's a disaster zone in every single position. Then DJ Turner's just an all-pro player. It's just DJ does his own thing. Everyone else is a complete mess. Aside did play well. I thought Murphy was really active. I'm surprised he didn't show up more in the stat sheet. Felt like he got
5
constant
hurries,
disruption.
but yeah. And I think it was some run stuffs and everything. But like I was surprised he didn't hit Lamar. But you're right, it did show up a little bit too.
And grading on that typical curve, I guess that would be A++ effort. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to just move past the Burrow stuff because late in this game, it did make me think, and I know they're 4-8, and I listened to Paul Dehner's podcast. It's called The Growler. He has one of the best post-game podcasts. It's tight, which maybe we should learn from, Ollie. I don't know. One of the reasons I like it's like always it's just 30 minutes. It gives me that Bengals post-game heat, and he always has great perspective. And after last week, they were just talking, okay, the season's over. The season's over. And then after this one, it's like, I don't know. The Ravens are pretty bad. They get to play them again in a couple of weeks. I don't trust the Bengals to rip off a ton of wins, including playing in Buffalo next week. That's the problem. But you could see a scenario where the Steelers and the Ravens lose enough that could 8 wins be enough to make the playoffs in this division? Could 9 wins be enough? If Joe Burrow keeps playing like this, he's got a chance. Let's actually listen to his first touchdown back from injury.
Now Pirine moves back a few steps and lines up to Burrow's left. Joe is ready, catches the shotgun snap, begins scrambling right. Burrow throwing downfield for Hudson. He's got it!
Wow!
Touchdown, Bengals!
Wow.
What an adjustment to the ball by Hudson. And he knocks over the back right pylon for a 14-yard touchdown. Joe Burrow's first since returning from the toe
injury.
When
you can pick on the Tanner Hudson versus Kyle Hamilton in great coverage matchup and actually get a completion, like you're cooking with gas. That was an incredible play.
Unbelievable play. I want to say too, I think that their offensive line, who takes a ton of flack, understandably, has actually been pretty good now for a couple of months. Again, grading on the Bengals curve with trying to figure out how could they put some kind of run together. I think it's going to go through how the offensive line can hold up. I thought they really handled all the different looks and pressures and fake outs that the Bengals tried to send their way. And if you just give Burrow even a split second of extra time that he's used to having, that's when he can do stuff like dice people ball, move slightly, and be able to have enough time to get the throw off. And they've been mashing people with the run. I mean, they're third in success rate since week 6. And so you go in that Bills game next week, that is a perfect profile to have like a 50 burger off between these two teams.
Man, I hate to give, Zach Taylor too much credit. First of all, this is setting up, not that I thought Zach Taylor or there was going to be some regime change necessarily anyways, but this is absolutely setting up for them to play well down the stretch and Mike Brown just to run everything back. That's a big picture look. But to give,
I don't know on that. I think the birdies are tweeting that Joe Brady and Joe Burrow might want to have a little rendezvous back in Cincinnati. I think that's very much still on the table. The thing with Taylor that's funny is everyone always says, what does he do? And that's a totally fair question. I got no idea what this guy does Monday to Friday. What he does do every time Burrow goes down is completely overhaul the offense, but it's delayed by like 3 weeks. He like runs on a lag. He can't accept that he just mourns that the Burrow is out, even though he's used to it at this point. So they overhaul it. That stuff usually works pretty well. Then Joe comes back and Joe's like runs it for a half and is like, I'm good with all that crap. Let's throw all that stuff out. Let's go back to the Joe Burrow offense. I would like them to keep as much of the run game elements that have really been singing over the past month, keep it in there with Burrow. Although I think that Taylor's a bit of a pushover and Burrow will get to do his thing.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, Burrow just feels like he's running this organization, and why not? I trust him over probably anyone else in the building, I guess. That's talk about singing. I like those Ollie birds singing. And I was gonna give Taylor credit too, because I almost feel like with these tight ends, it's Drew Sample, it's Noah Fant, it's Tanner Hudson, who, by the way, the very play before made an incredible play as a cornerback to, I think, get the ball away. It was the same matchup from Kyle Hamilton on what could have been an interception. So shout out to Tanner Hudson. And Gesicki, like, they're almost Rams light a little bit with these like 4 tight ends that it's like not huge production, but they just seem like they're effective in adding layers to the offense, and the offense has been pretty good, more than pretty good.
And Burrow will cast them aside within 2 weeks when he gets back to playing how he wants to play.
It's fair. Okay. We've done it. I don't know if we got through all of your notes.
We have to give just one last note. The best announcer over 2 beautiful, glorious football days was Jason Garrett. What a comeback for Jason Garrett. What a comeback. And I know people are thinking, wait, I heard him on Notre Dame at NBC where it sounded like he was throwing up on himself, was panicked the entire time. Last year, pretty good on Thanksgiving. This year, absolutely elite. Now, this is coming from a guy who loves Troy Aikman. I know Troy Aikman is divisive. I think Aikman is by far the best in the business. I thought Garrett was exceptional in having the innate ability to understand every single thing that happened on a play in real time. It is so impossibly tough to do that. We've been at games and call games. It is so hard to be able to see both the coverage and the rush and the protection and the route concept. Somehow he can internalize it instantly and point stuff out that is proven when they go back to replay. Oh, he's exactly right on how the play unfolded.
I mean, to defend us on TalkSport, they got the replay monitors right away. They got the spotters and everything. So, step up, Will Gavin. Let's up the budget here, and we could be giving you that level of analysis. I love that. I don't know if I'll go back to check that out. The Ravens-Bengals game was the one I did not watch live until the fourth quarter, and even then, my family, we had them all over last night. We sat down for dinner right about as that game started, and so I watched that back this morning. But that's great to hear. I did think he was good. Some guys are better doing the game by far, even though it's a harder job on some level than the studio, which I get. The studio is sterile and the job kind of sucks. You're just saying 15 seconds. If you're good in studio, it's it's hard to do that. And Jason Garrett, you're right. He never says anything in the studio, but I know for a fact some hires up at NBC listen to this show. So maybe. Oh,
that's good. Yeah. Take the charismaless man out of the arena that asks him to have charisma and let the ball coach call ball plays in real time. That seems pretty sensible to me.
I do think that makes sense. Although Chris Collinsworth, I do think is great at seeing the whole picture in the moment.
Not quite
maybe not Troy Aikman.
Aikman is so streaks ahead of everyone else. It's not fun.
He's a quarterback. Unfair advantage. Okay. I don't know if we got to all 4,000 pages of your notes, and we're fired up. I'm going to listen to one last thing about Joe Burrow, by the way. I wanted to hear him post-game. He was about as close to emotional as I would say Joe Burrow ever gets.
Certainly hasn't been easy on me through 6 years from a lot of different angles, but I've worked really hard to put myself in position to be back out there. And a lot of people around me have done the same. There's no better feeling than that. Putting in work for a long time and going out and it paying off. It's there's just no feeling like going out in front of the world with a group of guys that work really hard to go try to win games and going out and putting on a good performance and winning that game.
It was reflective, and it was a lot. He mentioned the last 6 years have been tough with the injuries. For a competitor like that to have to miss so much time, this season has not been the same without him for all of us, but I'm sure has been absolutely brutal for him. So it was a cool moment.
I don't know how you can't love a guy with that flow and that coat, just getting emotional, throwing darts to Tanner Hudson on Kyle Hamilton. Football's the best.
Eric lets us know your reaction to the coat off camera because we were showing it was just fantastic. It is amazing for that big of a badass to be wearing that badass of a coat. I mean, he's our Joe Namath. He just has to stay healthy. When he hit that first touchdown, or no, it was actually the Yosevas touchdown. And I think if you're watching us on YouTube, we love you. Subscribe, we'll be back on Sunday night. You can actually see his reaction after hitting that touchdown of him just slamming himself in the chest and in the head saying, "You're going to send a 6-man pressure on me? I'm going to make you pay." And he said after the game how they've been repping that exact play over and over all season, even when he was not in the lineup. Everyone check out the Read Optional, Ollie. I saw you got a Black Friday special, so this is the time to do it.
$50. Come on now. $50 for a year of the Read Optional? Amazing.
That's the whole year, and that's Ollie's great writing, and so he'll be using about maybe 3,500 of those 4,000 words of notes in terms of his writing. And then you can also check out his great podcast with John Ledyard if you subscribe there too. If you subscribe to this podcast feed, you will hear us again on Sunday night. So normally Ollie and I are going to be doing Saturdays moving forward, but it was a pleasure, Ollie, to have you recapping. I think the biggest 2 days of the NFL season so far. So hopefully Sunday can top it. A lot of pressure. I'll be back in the studio with Jordan Rodriguez and Patrick Clavon. Your guy Shook will be live from Cleveland. We will see you then.